Hi, I'm Stephen James, and I'm getting ready to blow you away with my new torch enameling project here at Beaducation. I'm super excited about this project because it uses one of my favorite new materials, acrylic enameling paints. It's also called an overglaze for ceramics, but we're using it today in a really fun, unique way. This project is inspired by the HOLI-FESTIVAL, which is a Hindu festival in which participants throw paint at each other. It's super fun, it's super creative, and this paint is one of my favorite new mediums. So much so that there are several projects in my new book, Discover Torch Enameling, that also use paint. So when you finish this project with the paint, I want you to head straight to my book and discover some of the other projects using this fantastic new torch enameling medium. Now, I want to give you a little inside scoop on how this project was developed. Because we're using canned air, or we're just going to use a simple cocktail straw to blow. This project was created, believe it or not, in 5th grade. It involves the use of canned air, or a cocktail straw, to actually blow the paint in many different directions. Now, my 5th grade art teacher brought this project in. Of course, we weren't torch enameling, we were just simply blowing the paint with our straws. I don't know if I quite heard all of the directions because she said, please blow the paint with your straw and then take a break and breathe. I must have skipped that part because yours truly passed out after just a few minutes of continually blowing. So that's safety tip number 1. If you're going to use your cocktail straw and you're going to do it manually, I want you to take a breath after every blow. So I'm super excited to introduce the HOLI-FESTIVAL pendant to you. Let's take a peek at some of the materials that we're going to be using today as we design our project. First and foremost, we're going to start with copper blanks, which are right here. We also see that our copper blanks are on magazine sheet, which is what we'll use for a sifting surface. We'll be sifting our black counter enamel on the back side and our white titanium white on the front. So these are our enamels. We will add the enamels to our sifting cup using a metal spoon. And here's our sifting cup. It's the smallest version of the sifting cup, and I love having a lot of these to be able to work with. Between applications of enamel, we'll use our brush head to remove any leftover enamels from this cup. And right here we have the most important material today. It is our acrylic enameling paint. Now, what I want you to remember is that this is an overglaze intended for enameling. It is not a crafting enamel paint. It comes in a variety of colors and they are all blendable. Now we're going to use this paintbrush to actually apply our paint to our copper project. A screw down hole punch, fine point tweezers, a diamond file, a pair of bent nose pliers reserved for torch enameling, stainless steel trivets, and a collection of containers that are reusable for either paint or water. You'll need a cookie sheet to work upon. We'll also need a kiln brick today. And then these two tools are super important and they work together. We have an awesome Blazer butane gas and then also a max flame torch. And I prefer a larger torch, one bigger than a micro torch, because the flame is just slightly larger. And you have your choice of a cocktail straw or canned air. And in fact, I encourage you to have 2 canisters on hand because as the canister gets cold, the pressure will drop. Having 2 on hand allows you to alternate between the 2 canisters. You know, in all of my classes, I say safety first, creativity second. And so in today's class, I want to remind you to be safe while you're creating. And there's a few ways to do that. I'd like you to wear your safety goggles while you're firing your projects. I'd like you to wear your dust mask while you're sifting your enamel onto your projects. I'd also like you to use a pair of bent nose pliers that are specifically used for torch enameling to pick up the trivet or any other pieces of tools that might be too hot. Now, it is also important for you to work in a well-ventilated area. And after you're done creating today, I really encourage you to wash your hands, maybe even take a long hot shower to get rid of any kind of glass that might have found its way onto you. It's a perfect way to unwind and a perfect way to relax after a long session of creativity. To begin, we have to hole punch all of our copper components as well as clean them with Penny Bright. Our first step is to hole punch. And we'll twist down to put a hole into the copper component. And you heard that little nib pop out. I really encourage people to hold on to the copper nibs that come out of the hole. It's right down here actually. You can actually use that and embed it into enamel projects. But we're ready to clean this. So I'm going to set it aside and clean one that I've already punched. I use my toothbrush and I'm going to use a little bit of water. And I like to use the palm of my hand to hold the component. This first clean doesn't take a lot of work because it's already somewhat clean. You're just trying to remove the grease and grime, oils, anything that's going to prevent the enamel from fusing to the copper piece. So it's clean, it's ready to go. We're going to dry it off and move to the next step. Now we're ready to counter our enamel with our 1995 black. I'm calling that number code out because it's one of the best enamels to use as a counter enamel. I'm going to use my sifting cup, and I'm also going to clean my sifting cup out with my brush to remove any enamels that were previously used. Now you'll notice I've put my copper component on a little stilt, and that's because I'm going to avoid using my tweezers today. I'm simply going to pick it up off of the stilt to transfer to the trivet. Another little tip that I have for you is to really use something to add your enamel to your mesh cup. I'd like you to avoid dipping it into your enamel and add the enamel to that. We'll tap that off a little bit. And now we're ready to counter enamel. Make sure you're wearing your dust mask as well. You're going to follow the formation of your copper component. So if it's circular, do that. If it's square, sift in that direction and then end up in the middle. And I like to actually set this aside because I might be doing more. I'm ready to pick it up and transfer it to my trivet. So enamels can be a costly investment, and I think anytime that you can reserve your enamels, especially the counter enamel, it's really important. You can see I'm using the same brush that I used earlier to remove the enamel from my stilt. I'm going to set that aside. And then I also have enamel inside the cup. I could simply add it back to that, but I want to show you how I get the enamel back into the main cup right here. I'm going to quickly fold it up like so, and then put it back in there. The magazine sheets usually have a glossy coating to them, and it allows you to quickly and carefully get the enamel back into the cup. Once you've added it back to your main cup, you can discard the magazine sheet unless you're going to use the same color again. I've added my trivet to my kiln brick, and I've also added the copper component to the trivet. You might notice that the setup is slightly different than my very first video with Beaducation, and I've moved my trivet to the center of the kiln brick. I really like this location quite a bit because I feel I can get my torch flame under the project even more so than I was able to do so before. So we're ready to fire, and we're ready to fuse the counter enamel to the copper. I'm going to turn on our torch. But please, before doing so, make sure you're wearing your safety goggles. And we want to follow the formation, or rather the shape, of our project. We're really heating up the copper, which in turn is going to heat up the enamel and take it through the stages that you're very familiar with. Sugar coat, orange peel, and then finally fused. You can see right now it is slowly going through sugar coat, orange peel, and our project has been fused. We're going to allow the copper piece to cool down for about 30 seconds to a minute. Then we'll come in and we'll use my tools that are specifically made for removing the copper piece, and we'll allow it to cool on our kiln brick for about 5 minutes before we clean the backside, removing the fire scale that has been produced. I'm sure you love torch enameling tips as much as I do, and this is one that will help you remove the fire scale. And you can see the piece that we just counter enameled is covered with a oxide, and it's cool enough that I can pick it up, and I'm ready to remove the oxidation. So I'm going to use a little bit of the penny bright, and I'm going to add a little, I call it a mask, to it. And here's its penny bright bath. It's just plain water. I'm going to add a little dollop to it, get it in there, maybe mix it in, and then I'm going to add this project to there, and I'm going to let it sit in there for about 15 to 20 minutes and let the citric acid that's in the penny bright do its job. That's going to remove the oxidation. So Beaducation sells penny bright. They also sell citric acid, which can be used as well. So here is a penny bright bath that we've already placed another piece into it, and you can see the oxidation has been removed, and there's just a few places that I could actually use a toothbrush, maybe a little bit more penny bright to remove it. So this guy is ready to go with the enamel for the front side. We'll need to rinse off all of the penny bright, towel it off, and he's good to go. Now it's time to add the titanium white to the front side of our piece. And I'm specifically calling out titanium white because it's the brightest white color and one of my favorites. And it's really going to help the paint pop. So I've added the titanium white to my sifting cup. Remember, I used that spoon to do so. And I'm following the rounded square, and I'm going to end up in the middle. Using my stilt again because it's going to make it so much easier for me to pick it up. You could, if you would like, use lighter colors, something like sky blue. Any color that's light is really going to help the paint show up. This is now ready to be added to my trivet and then fired. Super excited about firing this titanium white. It's my favorite white, and I hope that it becomes yours too. We're ready to fire it. And before I fire, I want you to pay close attention to the color. It will actually cream up slightly, and it will look like you've ruined it, but no worries. Once the enamel has cooled down, it will come back to that bright white. That's going to be the perfect palette for our paint. It takes a little bit longer for it to fire because we're working with a layer on the back and a layer on the front. There's that cream, sugar coat, slight orange peel, and now it's fully fused. We're going to stop right there. We're going to let it cool slightly. It may be a little challenging to see at home, but it does cream up a little bit. I'm going to put this right next to it being very careful not to burn myself. You can see how bright white the titanium white is once it's cooled down. So we're going to remove this from the trivet. And now I want to call this out as a tip too. There are times when our projects might very well stick to the trivet. And that's why you need to use a tool that has a lot of strength to it. You don't want to use something that's not going to allow you to really hold on to it. I'm going to move my kiln brick out of the way, and I'm going to slightly tap on my cookie sheet down below. And see, it came off. Now I'm going to bring it back up to the kiln brick, and I'm going to let it cool there completely for about 5 minutes. Okay, so we're ready to throw this gorgeous paint at our project. So I have my water ready to go, and I've actually added my enameling paints to contact lens cases. Actually, this is a wonderful use of those. So I'm going to start with the lightest color first, which is yellow. And I'm going to simply pick it up. And I'm going to add it. You can add it wherever you'd like, but I tend to put it right in the middle of the project. And I want it a little watery. I'm going to set my brush down, and I'm ready to actually use my cleaning duster to use the compressed air to blow or throw the paint. And I might move it around a little bit. I might hold it like this. One of the things that's important to remember with the paints is that until they're fired, they aren't set. So if I don't like my design at the end, I can simply erase it by putting it into water or using a towel to remove it. Now you can see I'm removing the yellow paint from my brush simply by putting it into the water. And it's okay to use the same water throughout this process. Now I'm going to pick up the red, and I'm simply going to add it right on top. I love how the colors mix together. These paints are actually blendable, so you can create new colors, new tints, new shades. So I'm going to hold it again, and we're getting ready to I like short little bursts of air with this project, and I just let it all happen. It's unabandoned creativity, which I think is so wonderful. It allows you to really come up with something that's totally unique to you and totally unique to the project. I'm adding my blue right now. Just a little bit of water, and it might very well blend and form a purple. Oh, perfect. It's really hard to control this process, so I really encourage you to open yourself up to whatever happens to be created. And if you've ever participated in the HOLI Festival, you know that it just is so much fun, and people are throwing color anywhere and everywhere. You walk out of it just covered in color, and it's such a unique experience, and I think this is such a unique project too. Perfect. Now I've used short little bursts to do that. You can see my yellow has somewhat disappeared. I could certainly come back in and add more of the yellow if I'd like, but what I want you to pay close attention to is how wet the paint is right now. It needs to actually dry before you fire it. I like to let it dry before it fires. If you fire it while it's wet, there's times where it might crack, and so I want to have you take a quick peek at a piece that I've already put together. You can see the difference between the two pieces. You can see our piece that was just done over here. It's still wet, and then you can see a piece that's had time to dry, and it's got a chalky appearance, and it's ready to be fired. Now remember, if you don't like your designs, it's very easy to get rid of them and start over, but you must do it before you fire the paint. So I'm going to add it to my water. And you can see all of that paint is starting to disappear. And then I'm going to take a towel, wipe it all off, and be able to start all over again. And you can continue to wipe it until you've got a clean palette to start all over again. If you don't have access to canned air, remember you can use the old school approach, which is using a straw. I'm adding a concentrated amount of the red. I'm not going to use all of the colors for this demo. I just want you to be able to see that you can, in fact, throw your paint using the straw. You'll add a little bit of water, and then you're ready to blow. You can turn the project around. Always remembering to breathe so you don't pass out like I did. Moving it around. And if you want to add a little bit more water to make it a little bit easier to blow and move around and ultimately throw, you can do that as well. Again, you let the paint kind of go where it wants to, and you let the paint do what it's got to do, and you're still going to get an equally beautiful outcome whether you use canned air or the old school straw method. Now we are ready to fire. Our paint has actually dried on both pieces. And you're probably wondering, what is he doing? Well, I think this is going to become an earring project. And so I'm actually going to fire both pieces, not at the same time, but I've loaded up my kiln brick with 2 trivets. And I really encourage you to have 2 to 4 trivets in your own studio. It allows you to actually keep working. You don't have to stop. You can have everything on your kiln brick all at once. So I'm going to fire the first one. And I'm going to get right under the project. Pay close attention to the paint. It's going to darken up a little bit. There it goes. It has to come up to a glossy finish. That is your key that the paint has fully fused to the glass surface below. We can see it darkening a little bit. All of the colors are. You'll notice the blue, the green, yellows. Here we go. Waiting for it to come up to gloss. You might want to work in a darkened room to really be able to see it. Okay, and now I might work over on this one and let the other one cool a little bit just to see if it's fully fused. When it's completely cooled, if you notice that any part of the paint is chalky, you have not fully fired your piece. And we're going to keep firing. One of the things to really remember with enameling is that when you start a fire, you finish a fire. You don't stop. You need to keep going until you're done with the project. And I can really see the gloss on this one coming up. Now they are both fully fused. These are going to be such cute earrings, and you might be saying to yourself, but they don't match, Stephen. But these designs are perfect for earrings because it's just such a fun and festive project and design. So again, if it sticks, don't worry, you can take it off. But what I do want you to notice is that you've got a nice gloss finish on this project, and you can see as I angle the project, and as you can see, it's a fully fused surface. The paint, the titanium white, they've all been fused together. Tap it, place it on your kiln brick to completely cool. We'll take a look at this one. Yep, If you see fully fused gloss, you know that you have fired it all the way. It's good to go. Tap, let it cool, and in just a few minutes we're going to have a gorgeous pair of earrings. After your project has been completely fired, both the front and the back, what you might notice is that you have little feet that have formed around the project. Now these feet are actually caused by the glass sticking to the trivet, which is one of the reasons why I like to have a lot of different trivets. If you only have one, you're always using it and you're always potentially getting glass added to it. We're going to use our diamond file, which has been immersed in water, and we're going to slowly remove those little feet. By running our diamond file back and forth over those little nibs or feet. You can call them whatever you'd like, you just need to get rid of them. Especially if you are working with like a pendant project. No one wants to have that irritating protrusion of glass against their skin. Now, one of the things you need to realize is that as you do this, you're potentially going to buff or etch the glass, and I think it's okay because I'd rather have etched glass than a glass protrusion. It's very difficult to see it because it was such a small foot, but we're also using black, which I think is a very forgiving color. And you can see right there, I got rid of the protrusion. Let's turn it on its side so you can see. Got rid of both of them. It's ready now to be added to my ear wires. How much fun was that? Don't you just love working with enameling paints? I know I did, and I do, and that's why there are several more projects in my new book, Discover Torch Enameling. Now, there are a few things that I didn't show you today, but I want to actually spark some creativity in you. You can use the enameling paints and use them with a sponge to sponge onto that titanium white. You can actually use painter's tape and block off certain sections and then apply that enameling paint to your titanium white. There are so many different ways that you can work with enameling paint, and I can't emphasize enough how much more you're going to be able to work with them in my new book, Discover Torch Enameling. There's projects inspired by scratch art from when we were kids. There's a project called Salted Enamels, in which you are using salt and paint. So many different techniques that often live with a true painting technique, but I've reapplied them to torch enameling, and I can't wait to see what you make. Thanks again.